City, the city that never sleeps. In the mid-1970s, it was alive with energy, bursting with life on every corner. By day, the streets buzzed with cars, laughter, and dreams being chased. But when night fell, a shadow crept in. A shadow that silenced parks, emptied nightclubs, and dimmed the neon lights. Whispers began to spread, stories of a killer stalking the quiet corners of the city. Young couples, looking for a moment alone, suddenly found themselves in danger. The radio warned listeners to lock their doors, the newspapers screamed about the son of Sam. Fear gripped the city's heart. No one knew who he was, or when he would strike next. Every shadow held a secret. Every silence held a threat. The city that once pulsed with life now trembled with fear. This is the story of New York's darkest days and the man who cast the longest shadow. This is the story of the son of Sam. The city's shadow. New York in the 1970s. New York City in the mid-1970s was alive, buzzing with energy, diversity, and endless motion. By day, the city was a symphony of sounds. Honking cars filled the streets. Street vendors called out their wares. Tourists crowded Times Square, marveling at the bright lights and giant billboards. Children laughed in Central Park, chasing pigeons and flying kites. Cafes overflowed with people sipping coffee and sharing stories. The city was a place where dreams were born and chased. But as the sun dipped below the skyline, a different story unfolded. The city that never sleeps began to tremble with fear. Darkness brought whispers, whispers of a killer on the loose. Stories spread quickly, carried by the wind through neighborhoods and apartment windows. Young couples looking for a quiet place to be alone suddenly found themselves the prey of an unseen terror. Radio stations interrupted their music to warn listeners, be careful. Stay safe. Lock your doors after dark. Newspapers screamed headlines about the son of Sam, the mysterious killer stalking the night. Police officers patrolled the streets, their faces grim, unsure how to stop the growing nightmare. The city was puzzled and afraid. How could one man spread such terror across 8 million people? Every night felt like a gamble. Every shadow held a secret. Every car parked in a lover's lane was a potential trap. The voices of New Yorkers, worried and scared, filled the streets and homes. I remember my sister calling me late one night. Her voice was shaking. She said, "Don't go out after dark. There's a killer hunting couples. Please be careful." I was scared, too scared to even look out the window. The city began to change before everyone's eyes. Parks that once rang with laughter grew silent and empty. Nightclubs that had pulsed with music and dance found their floors deserted. Bars closed early, their neon lights flickering off one by one. Street corners, once crowded with late-night workers and night owls, became ghostly quiet. Taxi drivers whispered about fewer fares, worried about the darkness outside. Parents kept their children inside, locking doors and windows tight. Businesses lost money as customers stayed home. The vibrant heartbeat of New York City slowed and faltered. The shadow of the son of Sam was falling over the city, a dark cloud of fear that no one could escape. Some said the city had lost its soul. Others said it was just a test, a moment of darkness before the dawn. But for those living through it, every day was a struggle to hold on to hope. They clung to stories of bravery, of police officers working day and night, of survivors who refused to be broken. But the question lingered, when would the nightmare end? Would the son of Sam be caught? Or would New York City forever be haunted by the ghost of a killer? The first attacks, a city in terror. It all began in the hot summer of July 1976. Two young women, Donna Laurie, just 18, and her close friend Jody Valenti, 19, were enjoying a night out in New York City. After hours of laughter, music, and the city's bright lights, they found themselves parked in a quiet spot, talking in Donna's car. The streets were calm, the night air warm, a perfect evening for two friends to share secrets and dreams. Suddenly, a sound shattered the silence. 3 gunshots echoed through the empty streets. Donna was hit instantly, her life ending in a moment of horror. Jody was wounded but lucky enough to survive. She was rushed to the hospital, her mind racing with confusion and fear. Who had done this? Why? In the days that followed, Jody gave the police what little she could remember. The attacker was described as a stocky white man with curly or bushy hair. But there was no name, no motive, no clue beyond the sketch artist's drawings. The killer had vanished, leaving only pain and fear in his wake. I remember the night like it was yesterday. We were just sitting there, talking quietly. Then bang, bang, bang. I didn't see his face, just the flashes of light. I felt sharp pain everywhere. I thought I was going to die. But somehow, I survived. But this was only the beginning. As summer faded into autumn, more attacks followed. Young women, sometimes alone, often with their boyfriends, were targeted in quiet, hidden places. Parked cars along deserted roads in Queens and the Bronx became hunting grounds for the killer. Some victims survived, their stories adding to the growing fear. Others were not so lucky. Each attack left the city more frightened, more desperate for answers. Everyone was afraid. You wouldn't go out at night anymore, especially if you were a young couple. My sister stopped dating for a while. People talked about it everywhere, on the subway, at work, even in church. The weapon of choice was chillingly consistent, a .44 caliber revolver. But this was no ordinary gun. It was a Charter Arms Bulldog, specially designed to be powerful yet tricky to trace. Ballistics experts had trouble matching bullets to the weapon because of its unique design. The killer's attacks were fast and brutal, giving little time for victims to react or escape. Each shooting was a violent intrusion into private moments of intimacy and trust. The killer was a ghost, appearing without warning and disappearing just as quickly. No connection to the victims was ever found. No demands. No explanations. Only death and terror. At first, we thought these were isolated incidents. But soon, it became clear we were dealing with a serial offender. The pattern was chilling. All the attacks happened at night, all targeted couples, and the same weapon was involved. The city began to change under this shadow. Parks that were once places of joy became avoided zones. Nightclubs and bars saw fewer customers. People stopped parking in quiet areas. Fear spread like wildfire, creeping into every corner of life. Then, in early 1977, the killer sent letters. Signed Son of Sam, the messages spoke of dark voices commanding the killings. They revealed a mind-disturbed man claiming to be under the control of evil forces. The letters were chilling, filled with threats, strange messages, and warnings. The Son of Sam seemed proud of the fear he caused. It was as if he wanted the city to know his name. The panic in New York City turned into hysteria. Every shadow was a threat. Every stranger a suspect. Women cut their long hair short, changed how they dressed, just to feel safer. The city that never sleeps was now a city that hid behind locked doors. The man behind the mask, David Berkowitz. David Berkowitz was nothing like what people imagined a monster to be. Born Richard David Falco on June 1, 1953, his life began with uncertainty. He was the product of an extramarital affair, and shortly after birth, he was given up for adoption. The Berkowitz family, Nathan and Pearl, a childless couple living in the Bronx, took him in. From the outside, David had a stable home. But inside, he was a lonely, shy boy who struggled to fit in. School was difficult not because of trouble, but because David felt invisible. He rarely spoke, rarely smiled. His classmates knew him as quiet, maybe a little odd, but harmless. He was the kind of kid who blended into the background, unnoticed. When David was 14, tragedy struck. His adoptive mother, Pearl, passed away from breast cancer. This loss shattered his world. Suddenly, The one person who had been his constant was gone. His father remarried, but David never bonded with his new stepmother. He felt abandoned once again, isolated in his own home. These years marked a turning point. David's grades fell, his faith wavered, and his silence grew heavier. At 18, seeking direction, he joined the U.S. Army. He was sent to Korea, but the military offered no refuge. David struggled with loneliness and boredom. He turned to drugs, a way to escape the emptiness inside. After his service, David returned to New York a changed man. His struggle continued as he took jobs as a taxi driver and security guard. But inside, darkness was growing. He began setting fires not once or twice, but over 1,000 times. These weren't just random acts of destruction. For David, the fires were a strange cry for help, a way to feel control in a world that felt out of control. Watching something burn gave him a sense of power and release. Psychologists say that for some, this act becomes eroticized, a twisted source of excitement and dominance. But even fires weren't enough to quiet the voices inside David's head. He began hearing commands, voices that told him what to do. He believed these voices came through a neighbor's dog, a black Labrador belonging to a man named Samkar. According to David, the dog was a messenger of dark forces, urging him to kill. This belief consumed him. In June 1976, David traveled to Texas to buy a weapon. He chose a .44 caliber Charter Arms Bulldog revolver, a powerful gun designed for sky marshals. This gun would become his instrument of terror. David Berkowitz was no ordinary killer. He suffered from severe mental illness, schizophrenia, and paranoia. His mind was a battleground, caught between reality and delusion. David's case is unique. Most serial killers prefer close contact with their victims, but David operated from a distance, shooting quickly and fleeing. His crimes were driven by the voices he heard and a deep need for control over his life and environment. David's victims were usually young couples, symbols of the relationships and normal life he never had. His attacks were brutal but swift, leaving the city in fear. Neighbors spoke of him as strange but harmless, unaware of the darkness inside. His story is a tragic reminder of how pain, loneliness, and untreated mental illness can create monsters out of men. Was David born to kill? Or was he shaped by his experiences, loss, rejection, and a mind out of balance? Experts believe it was a combination of both genetics and environment. His tale is a grim lesson on the dangers of neglecting mental health and the power of inner demons. The Hunt Omega Task Force. By the spring of 1977, New York City was gripped by fear. 5 young people were dead, and more had been injured. The city demanded answers, and fast. The police knew they were facing a serial killer unlike any other. To catch him, they needed a new approach. So, they formed the Omega Task Force, a special unit combining hundreds of detectives, patrol officers, and investigators from across New York. Their mission: to find and stop the son of Sam before he could kill again. The task force focused on the killer's preferred hunting grounds: quiet parks, parking lots, and lovers' lanes where couples sought privacy. Officers patrolled day and night, watching, waiting, hoping to catch a glimpse of the killer. Undercover detectives disguised as couples sat in parked cars. Uniformed officers hid in shadows and behind trees. The city was on high alert. But the killer was clever. He struck without warning, like a ghost slipping through the night. He appeared suddenly, fired his shots, and vanished before anyone could react. Despite hundreds of officers searching every corner, he left no trace. The city's fear grew heavier with each new attack. People stopped going out after dark. Parents warned their children to stay inside. Even the police felt the pressure. Every failed attempt to catch the killer weighed on them. Then, in July 1977, a small but crucial break appeared. At the scene of one shooting in Brooklyn, an eyewitness noticed something unusual: a man receiving a parking ticket nearby. The ticket was the key. Police traced it to a car registered to a David Berkowitz, living in Yonkers, just outside the city. Suddenly, the mystery man was no longer a ghost. Neighbors described him as strange, quiet, often angry. They told stories of his dog barking endlessly and of how he had shot a neighbor's dog. The pieces started to fit. The police set up surveillance around Berkowitz's apartment building. They watched his every move, gathering evidence and waiting for the perfect moment. On August 10, 1977, the day finally came. The streets were hot and humid, but the tension was electric. David Berkowitz walked out of his apartment, seemingly calm and unaware of the storm around him. He got into his car. Police officers surrounded him. The lead detective approached, gun drawn. "Put your hands on the dashboard. Don't move." David smiled. "You got me," he said quietly. In the car was the weapon, the .44 caliber revolver used in the shootings. The reign of terror was over. It was almost unbelievable. After all the fear and frustration, we finally caught him, and it was because of something as simple as a parking ticket. It just goes to show, sometimes it's the small details that break a case. David Berkowitz's arrest brought hope to a city living in fear. But it also opened new questions. Who was this man? What drove him to kill? And how many more might have suffered if he hadn't been caught? Confession and reflection. After his arrest, David Berkowitz did something few killers do. He confessed. In a series of detailed interviews, he admitted to all the shootings. But his story was strange, unsettling. David claimed that voices in his head had told him to kill. He said that the devil spoke through a neighbor's dog, commanding him to carry out the murders. These were not just excuses. Experts who studied David concluded he was severely mentally ill. He suffered from schizophrenia, a condition that can cause hallucinations and delusions. His mind was trapped in a world where reality and fantasy blurred. When brought to court, the question was whether David could stand trial or if his illness made him not responsible for his actions. But in a surprising move, David pled guilty to all charges. The judge sentenced him to 365 years in prison, a lifetime behind bars. The victims of his crimes were young people, full of hopes, dreams, and futures stolen too soon. Their families grieved deeply, and the city mourned the loss of innocence. New York was forever changed by the fear and pain brought on by the son of Sam. But amid the tragedy, the case sparked important conversations. It forced society to confront issues of mental health, violence, and justice. What drives a person to commit such horrific acts? Is it something in their genes, nature? Or is it their upbringing, environment, and experiences nurture? Maybe it's a mix of both. Experts still debate what made David Berkowitz a killer. His story reminds us of the importance of mental health awareness and early intervention. It also warns us of the devastating consequences when pain and illness go unchecked. Above all, the son of Sam case teaches us to be vigilant but compassionate. To protect ourselves and others, but also to seek understanding and support for those who suffer in silence.